Hello and welcome back to the channel. So today I kind of want to talk about the wide receivers and the tight ends of this draft class. Though I understand there's not a lot of superstars in these positions. I think there's a lot of either great depth. I think there's some great role players, and I generally still love both these classes. So I'll talk about it a little bit more. But first off, let's just show you like the different tiers that I have in case it's your first video seeing of me. Um, I have tier one, which is generally the people who I think are going to go top half of the first round, or my book are top half of the first round kind of players. 1 to 18. Tier two is going to be more so pick 19 to pick middle of the second round. These are players who I generally like. I think that they have either great roles. I think there might be some questions, but for the most part, should be able to work on the NFL. Just depending on the role. Then tier three, these are players who I think need a little more development or might have a specific role, and like I said, that role is not going to be very coveted. So again, you'll see it throughout the video me talking about where I think they fit better at, and so just kind of show you my thought process when I start ranking these players. So I have 14 wide receivers I think I have in the top 100. So without further ado, start pick number 14. Now, pick number 14, I understand that a lot of people are more higher than him on him than I am. It's going to be Chris Brazzell out of Tennessee. My thing is this, and I don't like to scout the team, the college teams. Again, I think that's unfair for a lot of these players. However, yes, Tennessee wide receivers, especially in the Alice Golish into Josh Heupel, like I said, taking over fully of the offense after Josh Golish left. That kind of scheme has definitely produced some wide receivers that have not panned out in the NFL. And you can say, regardless, why that might be. Again, I wasn't very big on Jalen Hyatt, if you remember. Um, I am trying to give the benefit of the doubt for Chris Brazzell and trying to give him some. I think that he could potentially even develop because he's a different wide receiver than what those have been. He's a bigger wide receiver with great speed, and one of the things that he has actually shown that is to still technically what's going to be used in the NFL is having a great release. So, in my opinion, is Chris Brazzell just mainly a great release, deep threat kind of guy? Sure, but you have players who work on that kind of role. MVS is that kind of role. So again, if Chris Brazzell can find himself in a situation where he's in that MVS esque kind of role, where he's a taller, deep threat kind of wide receiver, I think that's perfectly fine for him. Like I said, he's got great speed, but the people that I'm seeing him either be had meetings with, or could you be like no, he had a combine interview. Um, the top three guys I'm seeing right now is Packers, which is interesting. Like I said, Packers, like I said, love their big wide receivers. Steelers, again, this is going to with Mike McCarthy now taking over for us for Steelers. It's interesting to kind of see the similarity with some of the stuff they're doing with the Packers. Obviously, like I said, longtime Packers head coach. And then thirdly is surprisingly the Saints. I think the Saints could be in an interesting spot because I know they desperately need to fill in their wide receiver core. Right now, it's pretty atrocious outside of obviously Chris Olave and also Vele, who I actually like Vele as a Panthers fan. I think he's a pretty good wide receiver. Obviously, they're going to fill it in. Maybe they go on day one, maybe they go day two. Who knows? In my opinion, Chris Brazzell was he's a third round pick in my opinion. And again, I don't mind taking an option on him in the third round. Hopefully, he develops into being something more. But right now, I think he's serviceable in the NFL. Now going to pick 13, and one that I kind of want to wait and see how he develops. But I think right now, I just have him a little bit above Chris Brazzell, and that's going to be Bryce Lance out of North Dakota State. Mainly because, one, yes, athletic freak. And again, athletic traits aren't everything, but it does impact you in the NFL as far as, how much of a step do you have above everybody else. Secondly, I don't want to be I don't want to beat down on Cole Payton much, but I will say this: sometimes it wasn't necessarily the best of throws. And Trey Lance, not Trey Lance, seriously, Bryce Lance, like I said, definitely adjusted on some of his routes, but he's got amazing speed. He's got great route running, but it's just the competition he's going against. Again, that's going to cause me to be a little concerned about consistent basis he's able to hold up against like NFL corners. I think he can. I just think that it might take him a little bit of a little bit of adjustment. But I think by like year two, year three, I think Bryce Lance could develop into a really great role. But I do think because of that, there's going to be some people who are looking at him as more like a project, which, like I said, I'm not complaining at all. I think that's perfectly fine for Bryce Lance. And honestly, it's probably the best for him to be in a more of a project role of where he's going to be, hey, I don't have to be the guy right now. I can focus on my craft and get even better. So again, I like that for Bryce Lance. I see I was like another low deep threat Z, but I think it's better than Chris Braswell. I think honestly some of the teams that I'm seeing him being having visits for, I actually like that for him. Like Packers are one of them. Obviously, like I said, the Packers right now are in a situation with Chris Watson and how Christian Watson, how long he's going to be there. If you want to get Bryce Lance to be like a replacement for Christian Watson, I actually love that for not only for Lance because he has a year where he gets to develop and not have to be like in the in like deep in the rotation. But like I said, he learns from Christian Watson, who has done a fantastic job in the NFL. And again, I think that would be great for Bryce Lance. Another one is the Chiefs. Again, the Chiefs desperately need to have, like I said, more of a bigger body wide receiver. They have, like I said, they don't really have that right now. Obviously, like Tyquan Thornton, you got Xavier Worthy, you got Rasheed Rice. Like you don't have like the tall, bigger body kind of wide receiver. Would love to see them kind of add that in the near future. And then the Falcons. Again, the Falcons they need a little more help. Obviously, if Drake London goes down, it's looking pretty dire right now. I think they did some solid additions. Like I said, like Zacchaeus, like I said, in the slot being like a little bit reliable wide receiver. But I think they definitely need to look for a wide receiver too, whether it be the second or third round. Just depends like what the Falcons want to do. But again, I think Bryce Lance is one of those players who I might be low on right now, but I think that by the end of year three, I'm going to love the progression that he's shown in the NFL. Now going on to pick number 12, and this is a wide receiver who I wanted to see more out of, and I think that part of it is not his fault. That is Zachariah Branch from Georgia. I'm an Auburn fan, and if you've seen any of my streams, whenever I stream Georgia games, when I did Auburn, Georgia, when I've done any other kind of games, when I talk about how much I do not like Mike Bobo. I don't love his schemes. I don't love Mike Bobo's play calling. And so I think that he used Zachariah Branch way too much as a screen. And again, does he work with screens? Absolutely. I think that he's a great yak kind of threat. Zachariah Branch, like I said, he pretty much catches a lot of things that are being thrown his way. So if you want to use him as a gadget kind of player, I think he's perfectly fine with that. I think he can work in that kind of role because he's shown it in college. But I think that he was definitely held back in that kind of offense, and I'm hoping that in the NFL he can be able to show even more. I think he has it in him, but he hasn't shown it on a consistent basis enough because he hasn't been allowed to show it. Where I can't have him as high as I really think that he could be. So again, Zachariah Branch, and I'm a little bit lower on him than some people are, but I really like him. I just need to see what I think he can be with better coaching and not a stupid scheme like Mike Bobo. Just a little bit of Mike Bobo rant. Just sorry, but who I think my Zachariah Branch could go to. One, first of all, I'm going to say I love him to potentially to the Raiders. I know that he had a situation where he got, I can't remember what exactly what it was because walking on the sidewalk or whatever, and then like some of the police officer, and anyways, like I said, it doesn't seem a huge deal, but it is still like an arrest thing. But I don't think it's like anything like super big, and it's not really being like reported on like it's a major thing either. So I don't think it should be really a problem. But that might cause him to drop a little bit. But Zachariah Branch to the Vegas Raiders. Actually, he's from Las Vegas. He's one of two wide receivers actually from Las Vegas. But him going to the Raiders, being in that role for Clint Kubek's system, moving around, I would love to see him be able to do that. The Rams, like I said, how the Rams used like a Tutu Atwell esque thing. I can think that Zachariah Branch could fit in that role too. Because again, the Rams need a wide receiver 3 because obviously the top 2 guys outstanding. They need another guy to basically fill in some of the roles that like they've lost. Like I said, a lot to Atwell. To Atwell signed for like I can't remember if it was a 1-year deal or whatever. He signed away. So I think he works in the Rams system, and then also the Falcons. Like I said, I think would it be awesome for him to go to stay in Georgia? A lot of Georgia fans love Zachariah Branch as well. It'd be great for him, but I think that you need to have you have Zacchaeus, who has been reliable over the last about 2 years, but there was a time where Zacchaeus was like downwards trend. So I think if you elevate that wide receiver position for the Falcons, which I think they're definitely going to do, I don't think it's be a second round pick. It could be depending on who's falls to them, but I think potentially be the third round pick. Zachariah Branch could be an option for you to be able to pair up with Drake London. I think that'd be best for him is having that bigger body wide receiver who's going to be taking a lot of those double teams and allowing Zachariah Branch to just work the intermediate of the field. Again, that's what I would love to see Zachariah Branch try to elevate as well. Now I'm moving on to wide receiver number 11. Now this is going into more so mid tier three. So again, these are players who I think are going to be um, earlier on the third round pick. This is going to be Ted Hurst. Now Ted Hurst out of Georgia State, I have seen a little bit more on. I haven't as done as deep a dive as I want to. Again, been kind of busy with my job. But what I have seen from Ted Hurst, I have been impressed. Again, yes, it's a little bit lower competition, so it does cause a little bit of concern being at Georgia State. But he catches pretty much everything that's thrown his way. He definitely, like I said, knows how to use his body. He's got great hands. So if I'm looking for more of a possession wide receiver later on to be able to hey, I want to make sure I get a sure-handed kind of guy, I think Ted Hurst fits that role. He's like 6'3" or so. Like I said, he's got great hands, got great hops. So if you're looking for more of a possession, red zone threat, I like that in like the early roles for him. Um, Not as much as I like Minor. I'm saying the name wrong for sure. Stanford wide receiver last year who went to the Titans, who I liked really really well because again he was that you know caught everything, and it was a bigger body wide receiver. But I think similarly as being a bigger body wide receiver, can catch everything, pretty good blocker as well. Um, I think there is definitely a role for him in the NFL, but because he will be kind of limited, I think it's going to cause him kind of fall. There are some people who are very, very high on him as being like a second round pick. I think that's a little bit too high, but honestly, if it's like a late second round pick, I'm not gonna be like, oh, the thing they reached for. Like if he fits your role, I think it's perfectly fine. Who I think they potentially go for Ted Hurst. Colts, obviously, like I said, the Colts are in a situation. They got Alec Pierce, they got Josh Downs, but uh, obviously they traded away Adonai Mitchell. They could find someone who could fit that kind of role. Again, you could try to see if Ted Hurst could fit that role. I'm mentioning the Falcons a lot because again, the Falcons have been trying to look after a lot of these guys. They are going to take a wide receiver in the third round. I truly believe that. I think there might go maybe a corner in the second round and very much going to take a wide receiver in the third round, unless they let the guy in the second round. And then lastly, like for Ted Hurst, the Saints. Again, Saints are another one's going to be popping up again because as much as they want to try to say go wide receiver in the first round, I really feel like the Saints are going to go either second or third because I think they're trying to go defense with a first round pick to get an impact guy. And then, hey, we already got a wide receiver number one. Let's see if we can kind of get more of a supporting kind of role. And though I think that Vele and Hurst kind of fit similar kind of roles, I wouldn't mind it if they're trying to see if they can open up Olave to kind of work more through the slot even more and be that dangerous kind of weapon for Kellen Moore's system. Now moving on to number 10. This is a guy who I really, really love. And again, you're going to start seeing where I love pretty much every single wide receiver up to this point. Even though they're not top guy, I absolutely love Skylar Bell from UConn. One, started off, believe it was Wisconsin, didn't get a lot of playing time, didn't get the development that he wanted to. Then goes to UConn. At UConn, during the 2024 season, had a great season, continues to develop. And there was a lot of people who started calling his name to try to get him to come to like, hey, you can be able to, improve your draft stock. You come here and we'll give you more money. But he stayed in UConn to get better development, and that shows in Skylar Bell's senior in like his super senior year, 2025, where he showed out. He, like I said, he's got great yak ability. He's got great hands. Got some great route running too. So again, I absolutely love Skylar Bells being that, like, early third round pick who is more than likely going to find a great role because, again, somebody's going to want him. Somebody's going to desperately want him because, again, they love these kind of players in the NFL. And I honestly think that out of the players that I mentioned so far, I feel the best about Skylar Bell in the tier three that I'm about to mention up. I feel the best about Skylar Bell having the longest career. I think Skylar Bell is the kind of player who can definitely get a second contract. I think he's the kind of guy that fans are going to adore as well because he's going to make plays, especially on third down. So he's that kind of player. But enough of me just talking about his kind of game. Watch Skylar Bell. You will fall in love with him as well. But honestly, he fits very, very well with what the Vikings can do. If the Vikings are truly like what I think, where they're probably more than likely going to get rid of Jordan Addison, because again, it wouldn't make any sense. Jordan Addison has had a lot of problems, and also, like I said, you can make it cheaper. If you're looking for a one Jalen Naylor replacement for the time being, and then the eventual replacement for Jordan Addison, Skylar Bell fits that role so well, and I love him. I would love him to go to the Vikings. I think that would fit well for Kevin O'Connell, and him being paired with Justin Jefferson would be amazing, not only for Skylar Bell but also for Justin Jefferson. Because again, I think Skylar Bell is going to cause a little bit of havoc as well. So again, that's my best destination for him. I would love him to go to the Vikings, but as I said before, Falcons are another team that's looking after him as well. If they're looking for more of a slot kind of guy to be able to work the intermediate of the field. I think Scott Bell fits that role too. Again, you're trying to look for a guy who's going to pair well with Drake London. There are some people that I'm seeing the Falcons are looking at. They're more bigger body. In my opinion, I would rather you focus on someone who's definitely a yak threat, who's definitely going to be like, someone who's going to be able to work the slot very, very well. And again, I think Skylar Bell can work that really well. Last one, like I said, Steelers. Steelers need a guy in the middle. Obviously, right now you have DK Metcalf, you have Michael Pittman. You need that yak threat. You're hoping that you're going to get at the Michigan wide receiver. Kind of think at the top of my head right now, but they drafted 2 years ago. I'm not as convinced that's going to happen. If I'm a Steelers, I have a lot of third round picks. I would probably trade up to try to get Skylar Bell if you don't get a wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. If you want to focus on other positions, Skylar Bell fits that role perfectly. And again, I think that he would be an amazing guy. But I will say there's a wide receiver I'm going to talk about next that I feel even better about going to the Steelers. But again, Skylar Bell, he's a great route runner. In my opinion, be better suited for the Vikings. The one that I think would be better suited for the Steelers, and I've been thinking about this for about a couple months now. Jeremy Bernard, my number 9 wide receiver from Alabama. Oh my goodness. Jeremy Bernard catches everything thrown his way. Like, Alabama had a lot of problems with dropping the ball, mainly Ryan Williams. That was frustrating last year. Again, I'm an Auburn fan, but I was a fan of Ty Simpson, watched a lot of Alabama games as well. And there were so many times that Ryan Williams dropped the ball. But you never got frustrated with Jeremy Bernard dropping the ball. A lot of times he made some crazy catches too. Again, pressure in his face, caught the ball. Knew he was going to get lit up, caught the ball. He is that kind of guy. He is the guy that's reliable, that is one, great route runner, but he's physical enough, like I said, like that. He's not scared of anybody. But the reason why that I think that Jeremy Bernard fits the Steelers so well, and again, I didn't start watching the NFL until like about 2011. Again, that's when I became a Panthers fan. But I don't know why I have this image in my head for Jeremy Bernard, but he fits those 2000 to 2010s Packers wide receivers so well. Like, just look at like James Jones, look at Donald Driver, look at like I said, a Jordy Nelson's a little bit taller, but like in that same exact mode of being like, an incredible blocker and someone who's not afraid to get hit across the middle. Someone that you can rely on. I feel about that about Jeremy Bernard. Does he have some yak ability? Somewhat, but he's just more so of that great route runner that's going to get open, that's going to catch your ball. And again, it should be an easy thing, but it's not. That's the reason why I think Jeremy Bernard, him and Skylar Bell, but again, I think Skylar Bell's yak ability is going to cause him to have a little bit longer career. I just love Jeremy Bernard so much. And again, I think he's super reliable. I think that, He's getting slept on a little bit too much. I think that he should be a second round pick, be more likely to be like a third round pick. But I love Jeremy Menard for the Steelers more so than anything. But he could also be good for either the Raiders, because again, the Raiders need weapons, need a guy who can get open. Jeremy Menard's a guy who can get open, and then also the Browns. Again, Browns just need a guy who can catch the ball. You had so many problems last year, so many drops. Same as I think, like I said, where we had Jerry Jeudy was dropping balls. You had a lot of people dropping balls. The main person who was reliable was Harold Finer Jr. So if you're looking for a guy who is not going to drop the ball, and especially if you get Carnell Tate in the very beginning, who barely drops balls at all, if you get Carnell Tate and you could get Jerry Menard somehow, some way, revitalize that wide receiver core, my goodness, that'd be amazing. But again, I think Jerry Menard, he fits really well with what the Steelers would do. But if he doesn't, those other two teams definitely would fit. Now going on to number 8. Wide receiver I would have higher if not for injury. That's be Chris Bell out of Louisville. Now, Chris Bell, what a freak athlete. I mean, he is like 6'2". I think he's like close to 220. He like running blazing fast, or you could definitely tell that on tape. Like, I know he was injured, so he couldn't be able to do like the combine or anything like that, but you watch the tape and his breakaway speed is ridiculous. Again, I understand there's some people who are trying to compare him to Debo. I feel that happens too much of where there is a wide receiver that could line up as a running back that could go the concept of compared to Debo. Again, there are other wide receivers you can compare him to. I don't like to do NFL comparisons. This is a little bit of a mini rant, but it happens all the time with players like Chris Bell. I think Chris Bell is an excellent wide receiver who's, like I said, he's definitely can be very, very physical as well. He's got the body to do so, but he's got breakaway speed. And if I get the clear that I think that he'll be fine with the ACL situation, then in my mind, I'll take a flyer on a Chris Bell in the second round. I think there's a possibility that the Saints could look at him, because I know that Tyler Shuck has actually been reports have been that he's been pounding the table to try to get Chris Bell, which that would be perfectly fine. However, I don't know how the Saints will feel about getting a injured wide receiver when their wide receiver core is as injured as it already is. But I think he would fit well with the Saints. Colts in a situation where I said they're needing a guy to kind of fill in that Mitchell role. I said Ted Hurst before, but if they want to go with more upside potentially, they could go with Chris Bell. And lastly, the Eagles. Again, if you're the Eagles and you're going to miss A.J. Brown, do I think they're going to look for a ideal replacement for A.J. Brown? I don't know which way they're going to go. They could go for a guy who's looks like A.J. Brown, and maybe he could produce not even close, but okay, but still fit that role. If that's the case, I could see them going for Chris Bell. Again, like I said, they have been giving him either, I can't remember if it was a combine interview for if it was a top 50, if it was a top 30 visit, but they have shown interest in him. I understand the injury concerns, like I said, coming off injuries. Like I said, is he going to be able to really is he going to be able to hold up in the NFL, or is that just an unfortunate accident and he'll just be able to rebound? I'm hoping it's the latter, because again, this is an incredible talent that I think could go higher if someone's willing to take that risk of a player coming off injury. Because of that, that's kind of why I kind of docked him down a little bit further down. But again, love Chris Bell. Think that he can have a long career. It just depends on how does he rebound off that injury. So that's tier 3 right there. So again, went through 14 through 8, tier 3. Now going number 7. And this is a wide receiver who I think quarterback play definitely impacted this player and what he could be. So trying to read between the lines, this is Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M. Formerly was on North Carolina State. Now, like I said, on Texas A&M. I'm not a big Marcel Reed fan. I have never been, but there are some people who will try to say that he's really good. No. There were a lot of times that Casey Concepcion, like his drops were high, but I think partially it was because just bad passes to him that I don't necessarily think that you can totally put on him for drops. Drops have been an issue. However, one of the things that you have to do if you have a problem with drops, you got to be explosive. And he is definitely explosive. He's definitely the kind of guy that can be your deep threat, that has the ability. He also has great return Great return tape as well. So again, looking for more of a returner with high upsides being that deep threat Z. Think Casey's Conception is a great guy. I understand some people has a first round pick. I think that's a little bit rich. Again, I think that he could in the late, like if I think he could maybe sneak into the first round, like maybe like the Dolphins pick at like 30. But people who are mocking him at 19 to the Panthers, again, I wouldn't hate Casey Conception on the Panthers. I do have him as one as like potentially, like say one of the teams from Charlotte. Would be nice for him to come, but um, I think that's a little bit too rich for me at 19. I think Casey Conception can be can, can be a great wide receiver number two, and even a great returner. But the drops concern me. And again, hopefully, better quarterback play, you see that improve. But you got to catch the ball in the NFL. And so, if he can prove it to me in the first year, I'll be like, okay, there we go. We've seen the true Casey Conception, where he's getting thrown the ball, like I said, especially if he's thrown by Bryce, or potentially, like I said, even place like the 49ers. The 49ers try to pick him up, going to Brock Purdy. Heck, the Chiefs. The Chiefs are showing interest in him as well. I mean, like that would be great for him. And being thrown to Patrick Mahomes again. I think if he goes into a situation with a more accurate quarterback, I think that he can thrive. But it depends on where he goes. It truly depends on where he goes. I know that goes for every single player, but I want to see him develop. I want to see him improve, and he has to have great quarterback play. Hopefully, to be able to put the ball in his hands and be like, okay, hey, prove it. We're make more accurate balls. Are you able to catch the balls? And if he is going to be explosive for that offense. And I think that's amazing for Casey Conception. Like I said, he's that kind of player. But again, we will have to see with him. That's why I kind of put him down the board a little bit. 2 RC number 7. Still like him. Not as high as some of these other people that I know for a fact they have a role in the NFL. I feel very confident they're going to work on the NFL. So again, like I said, 49ers, Chiefs, Panthers, those are teams who could find someone who is a yak ability, who's also has return ability as well. Now I'm going to wide receiver 6, and I'm so high on this wide receiver because I know his type works out in the NFL. And do I think that he's going to hit the highs of someone like a Keenan Allen? No. But a player like Elijah Surratt, who can be an X wide receiver, who just catches everything that goes his way, has just apps. I don't want to say perfect. That's too high praise. But there is rarely a time where you see him when he's just dicing up um, a cornerback where he doesn't get a good bit of separation. There is rarely a time when Fernando Mendoza looked to Elijah Sarratt's way and didn't trust him. That's the other reason why I have him so high, because Mendoza knew Sarratt's going to be able to get this ball. All I got to do is throw in his general direction. Sarratt's going to get this ball. That's a telltale sign of a quarterback's best friend. So again, that's why I'm a little bit higher on him, because again, does he have these elite traits like great yak ability? They have like great deep speed? No. But in the NFL, you got to get open, you got to catch the ball. Those two things he does extremely well. So again, if I'm Elijah Surratt, I think he could be a great possession, even X. I think he could be an X wide receiver. Though more often than not, he's probably like more so like a Z. But I think he could fit that role. In that case, I think he could go to places like maybe the 49ers, who are right now in a situation where, all right, we got Mike Evans, but Mike Evans isn't going to last that long. So do you want to find a guy who can like fit in his role after he's done? Do you want to find, because like I said, I know he's signed like a multiple year deal, but it's technically there's like an out to it for the 49ers too. There's that situation. But if I'm looking for a guy who's going to get open just like Mike Evans would do, perfectly fit for him. I think the Raiders. Again, I don't want to give up on Jack Besh. I like him from TCU. Liked him last year. If you look back at my videos for him, liked him last year. But I do think that Shirai is definitely a step above. I think that Shirai also has the connection with Mendoza. So if you want to have him already have that connection with Mendoza and carry that over into the NFL, which would be amazing for him, I think that'd be perfect for them. And lastly, this would crush me if this happens on day two, because again, I love Shirai so much. But if the Saints, who desperately need a wide receiver, get Elijah Surratt, that's going to hurt me so much because again, that's a surefire player who I feel is going to have a long career in the NFL. Again, is he ever going to be a star? No, but you don't have to be a star to have a long career. I think he's so reliable. I think he's going to work out in the NFL, and any team that drafts him in the second round, I think he should go in the second round. Any team that drafts him in the second round is going to be happy. The fans are going to love him because he's going to be Mr. Reliable. So again, love him at 6. I couldn't put him that I couldn't put him higher because again, his he has like a cap of what I think he could do. But could he be like, your 700-800 yard wide receiver? Absolutely. Like I said, get probably 6 touchdowns a year. Be very, very reliable. You're happy he's on your team. Absolutely, absolutely. So now moving on to wide receiver number 5. Now, wide receiver number 5. This is a player that I'm also a little bit higher on. That I've seen some like very, very wide ranges of where people have him. That's Denzel Boston from Washington. Boston, yes, gracious, Boston. He is so big and knows how to use his body while also, like I said, great tracking of the ball. So again, if you're looking for a bigger body that can track the ball down the field, that can go up and get it, possession wide receiver, and a great red zone threat, that is Denzel Boston. Again, do I love him in the intermediate stuff as much? No. And could you say like, well, why not just go for Bryce Lance? Again, Bryce Lance is a little bit is lower down on the pole. I just think that Denzel Boston showed time and time again against great corners that if the ball is in the air, it is my ball. It is my ball. He knows how to use his leverage. I think he's like what 6'4", like over. I think he's over 220 pounds. He's a huge dude. Got great speed, but he's got great releases. He's got great ball control. I think he's that kind of guy who, like I said, if we're looking for more of a physical kind of X wide receiver, if that's more of like your style of your offense, I think that works for him. That's why, in my opinion, I would love him to go to the Browns. If the Browns decide that they're going to go with if they would decide they want to go with the offensive line with their first pick at number 6, I think potentially, hey, at pick 24, if you want to try to go get Denzel Boston, that's perfectly fine for them because again, he's going to catch the ball and he's going to also be a great blocker. So again, in that kind of scheme, I think that's perfect for him. The one that I actually picked him to go to, and that is the Dolphins. Again, Dolphins are in a situation where they just got to get best player available. That's pretty much. And if you're a pick 30, which, like I said, I think Dennis Boston could fall to, and you're looking for a guy who is definitely in that Packers esque mold, I think that's Denzel Boston to a T. So if you're looking at the Dolphins and hey, you get an impact guy with on the offensive line, defensive line, pick 11, maybe even corner if he falls to you, it wouldn't hurt who you first round pick that you got for trading away Jalen Waddle. You replace him with a wide receiver who actually fits more of your scheme. So again, in my opinion, that would be great for the Dolphins. Again, Denzel Boston. And then the 49ers are also in a situation again with the 49ers. They need a compliment. So again, Denzel Boston would be a great compliment to learn underneath Mike Evans. But also, like I said, you have him, Mike Evans, and also said Ricky Pearsall. So that would be a great one for the 49ers if they decide to go in that direction. Um, but I feel more confident with either the Browns or the Dolphins. Omar Cooper Jr. for number 4. Omar Cooper Jr., I want to be higher on him. And again, I have him as a high tier 2. So again, I think he's going to go later half of the first round for sure. I think that he's going to be like, a great player. I just don't think there's ever a time where I think that Omar Cooper Jr. is going to be a wide receiver number 1. I think that he is an amazing. I think he's amazing. Could have inside out flexibility. Um, playing the slot or playing like the outside Z. He's got great yak ability, and he's a pretty decent blocker as well. But when you watch Indiana, and that's the reason why I also have like Sherrod a little bit higher. Sherrod's the guy that Mendoza was going for in those third downs. He was a reliable target. I'm not saying that Omar Cooper couldn't be, but that's not the focus. Cooper is the kind of guy that, hey, if you want to use him for screens, great. If you want to use him in a slot, great. If you want to use him as like, if he was possibly in the Rams, if you want to put him in that kind of system, like what, like, if Puka Nacua needs a little bit of rest, or you want to try to see what Puka Nacua can also do, kind of what you had with Cooper Kupp. He could be in that kind of role for the Rams. I think it's a possibility that he could go to the Rams. But I want to be higher. I think that there's some NFL comparisons to DJ Moore. People were trying to say I can kind of see a little bit, which I think that obviously Panthers fans would love because again, we have been mocked if Cooper's there that we will take him. I think he'll go higher than pick 19, so I do think he'll be a top 18 pick. Um, but if he does fall to us, that'll be a great fit for us, and I think that'll work out for Omar Cooper Jr. I'm a little bit hesitant. I think he's going to work on the NFL again. I think I don't want to downplay him too much, but I'm not as high as other people are. Again, I think he's a great yak ability. He's got great speed. He's got in one of the things that a lot of times that you lose when you're those two things. You're not a great blocker. He is that. That's what kind of like elevates him as well because again he has very much position flexibility. So again, I think Omar Cooper would be a great fit for the Panthers. Our talk about the 49ers a little bit. Again, there'll be a different way as far as like, okay, we want to look for more of a yak threat. We have Mike Evans. We have Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall has had shown some flashes, however, he has been injured. So if you're looking for a guy who's going to be a yak ability to, take over what was that Debo role, sure, if you want to look at that way, maybe the 49ers go in that direction. But again, I would be very surprised if he lasts all the way to the 49ers pick. Eagles would be the interesting one. Eagles know they're losing AJ Brown. If you're going in a different direction, different kind of offense, and you want to have Devontae Smith be your X, but you still want to have a very dangerous number two who is able to get open and be able to be like potentially like with different cut with screens and stuff like that. What AJ Brown has also done because AJ Brown's been in the slot, been able to move around, but it'll be like a different vibe because it's not going to be like a bigger kind of guy like AJ Brown is. I think that fits for Omar Cooper Jr. That's the reason why I say that, like, depending on where he's going, I think that he could be elevated in a system like the Eagles, where I'm hoping they kind of fix their offensive woes. But if you put Omar Cooper Jr. with Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith, I think that'd be best suited for him. So, in my opinion, I think he's best suited for the Eagles. Does he go there? I don't know. But if he does, I think that'd be perfect for him. Now, going on to the top three. Really, it can kind of go in any order. I have my number one just slightly above, and I'm kind of going to talk about all these players, like kind of similarly, where I don't know for certain if they're going to be stars in the NFL, but I know they're going to be very, very, very high up there as far as like, hey, you know what? I don't think they're going to bust. I very, very much like. I very, very am hesitant to even think that they could bust. Number three, wide receiver, Mekhi Lemon. I think he's an amazing player out of the slot, but unfortunately, that's where I see him. I don't think he's going to be wide receiver number one, but if you're looking for a guy to, in my opinion, I think that Mekhi Lemon works best if he was put in a Ben Johnson-esque role. I understand people will try to compare him to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think partially that of the USC, but if you do watch the tape, you do see some of the role that he could fit. Is he an absolute burner? No. But does he catch everything that comes his way? Yes. He's a smaller wide receiver who catches everything that comes his way. Very tough. Knows how to get open. Is a great zone beater. And that's the thing, too. Like, he knows, okay, I can read the coverages, find the spot, sit down, wait for the quarterback to pick me up, and then I'm gone. Love that for him. I think that there's a possibility that if the Browns take Carnell Tate at pick 7, and I have this as potential to be a fit, Mekhi Lemon could go to the Commanders. Again, David Blau, who is the offensive coordinator for the Commanders right now, was with the Lions when, like, so you had Dan Campbell, when you had the whole resurgence for the Lions. He saw how important it was to get a wide receiver like Amon-Ra St. Brown. So again, I think the fit fits perfectly because again, he's a great complement to um, Scary Terry. So again, I would love to see Mekhi Lemon in the Commanders, but if not for the Commanders, obviously a big one is the Jets and also the Rams, depending on where he goes. I like the compliment that he does for the Jets. I like Mekhi Lemon complimenting what Garrett Wilson does, very reliable wide receivers. I don't know if it's a Frank Reich system. Again, I'm not as sure about that, but I know for sure he fits the Rams system. And if there's somehow, some way that Mekhi Lemon falls all the way to the Rams, that is the pick. Mekhi Lemon is a great compliment to Puka Nacua for the future, and then for right now, he can just fit in that slot role. He can just get open, and a Mekhi Lemon, Puka Nacua, and Devontae Adams wide receiver core is just not fair. It's not fair. So again, if somehow, some way Mekhi Lemon falls to the Rams, that's going to be an absolute nightmare. Now number 2, and very reliable. I think has one of the highest um, catch percentages in I don't know how long. Carnell Tate at Ohio State. I am very high on him, but I do think that there are some question marks on him due to who he's surrounded by. And again, it's not his fault. It's not his fault that he has, you know, he's surrounded by a lot of great weapons. Like I said, you had Mecca Buka last year. Obviously, like I said, you had a continuous of Jeremiah Smith. But can you be a wide receiver number 1? And that's gonna be a question mark that he has to answer. I think he could. I think he really could. And regardless if you believe that he can or not, what you can't deny is how reliable he is. I think he's maybe had 2 drops or something like that. It's something historically. I don't have the stats in front of me. I probably should have looked them up when I was doing this video, but you can look them up if you want to. It's ridiculously how great his hands are. So if I'm looking for someone who's going to be a great possession wide receiver that has decent speed, yeah, he's 4.5. Okay, but watch the tape. He knows how to get open. He knows how to get open on deep routes, how to set up a safety and cut inside. And as long as the quarterback is on the same wavelength to him, I think he work on the NFL so well because again, he knows how to use his body. He does not drop balls, and he obviously, like I said, knows how to set himself up in the best situation. So again, you can see as far as him mentally, him mental process, what the defense is in. So in my opinion, I think that starting off, you could just say he is a very, very high quality number 2 who could be a number 1, but has got to prove it. And without further ado, obviously you should know who my number 1 is based upon who the other ones are. It's gonna be Jordan Tyson. And the reason why I'm saying Jordan Tyson, and I have him as high, because I think he's gonna work on the NFL, but what I'm still a little bit concerned about is the injuries. Now, I will say this. I think that some of it gets overblown because, yes, 3 years ago, he was out for 10 games, something like that. He was out for a very long time. Back-to-back years, he has had injuries. He had the broken collarbone, he had the ACL, all that kind of stuff. And there were pretty much 2 games apiece. So, yes, injuries are a big concern. There are some people trying to question his durability in the NFL and how that will last. I don't know. What I do know is this. You watch the tape, and you just take out the fact that, hey, maybe injuries might slow him down. As being the most talented wide receiver in this class, I don't think it's close. I think that Jordan Tyson, his route running is so crisp. He has such a knowledge for knowing how to use his body, especially, like I said, in very tight coverages, putting himself in the best situation possible. He's got excellent hands. He's got great speed. He could fit in a role like a JSN. Will I think that he fits? Do I think that he's going to be a JSN? No. But if you're looking for a guy who JSN, Chris Olave, basically a lot of these Ohio State kind of wide receivers, I think he could fit that role. I think he'd be number one. Injury's going to cause some concern. So again, I don't know where he's going to go in the NFL. I don't know. I know that he had, like I said, he had the meetings with the teams to show what he can do. I think potentially he can go higher. I know that the Giants have been looking at him potentially. I don't know if he gets now to number 10 because I think there's a possibility he could go in a different direction. So, who do I think the potential could take Jordan Tyson? Jets, if they want to trade back up. If they get their guy number 2 and they want to trade back up, I think Jordan Tyson fits Frank Reich's system even better. So, again, if you want to have Jordan Tyson and Garrett Wilson have two amazing wide receivers who know how to get open and got great hands, that's perfectly fine for me. I would not bat an eye for you trading up to try to get Jordan Tyson. Secondly, I would hate it so much, but the Saints like Jordan Tyson, to pair him with Chris Olave, you could say, oh, they fit kind of similar roles. I don't care. The pairing of Jordan Tyson and Chris Olave is too salving to pass up for Kellen Moore to get two guys who are going to get open, who are going to be nightmares for defense to kind of have to deal with for the next definitely 5 years. That's scary to me, and oh my gosh, I'd hate it so much if the Saints got Jordan Tyson. But the worst one for the league that I think could possibly happen is if Jordan Tyson goes to the Chiefs. If Jordan Tyson goes to the Chiefs and he doesn't have the medical problems, where you have Jordan Tyson, who's a guy who can definitely get open, and you can let loose, not let him run wild with a car, but you can let Rashee Rice loose, where he's able to use his yak ability. But you got a guy who can get open, a guy who's going to be a dangerous weapon for Patrick Mahomes when he comes back. That is scary. That's scary for the league. That's scary for what Jordan Tyson could be with that kind of quarterback, and also the kind of scheme that Eric Bieniemy and also obviously, like I said, Andy Reid could scheme up for Jordan Tyson. So again, that would be rough. That would be rough if that happens. But again, Jordan Tyson, I think, has the highest potential out of any of these wide receivers. I think injuries might hold him back. But I'm willing to bet on him. I'm willing to bet that he's going to work on the NFL. That's why I have him as a high tier 1. So those are the wide receivers. So again, long portion of the wide receivers. Tight ends, I like some of the depth. I'm only really going to talk about 6, and kind of there is not a lot really to talk about with tight ends. They're either one thing and they're not. So I'm not going to go as in depth as the wide receivers are. But I start off my number 6 tight end, Michael Trigg from Baylor. He is a fascinating tight end prospect because I think he's more of like that receiving big Y that I could technically talk about another tight end as, and I kind of will. But I watched him against Auburn. Like I said, I'm an Auburn fan, and Michael Trigg, just some of the plays that he makes, because he knows he's apparently was like a basketball player, and you can definitely see on the field. Just jump ball, any ball around him is my ball. There are some people, the stock exchange, the NFL stock exchange said this, and I kind of agree with this. There's sometimes where he looks like David and Njoku, like he is jump ball. I'm going to get that kind of ball, almost like wide receiver esque. Blocking, very concerning. Very concerned for Michael Trigg, and that's going to bring him down. That's the reason why I have him as a tier 3, low tier 3, like I said, because I think that's going to hinder him from where he's going to go in the NFL. But just watch Michael Trigg highlights. And I know it's bad just to look at highlights, but his top plays are amazing. Again, like I said, I'm not trying to like hype him up too much, but watch him against Auburn. Watch him against some of these other players where he's just absolutely just over people. It's fantastic to watch. Hard. It's it sucks if you're a fan of the teams he's going up against, but I wish it was more consistent. But I love Michael Trigg. I love what he could be, especially if, let's just say that Michael Trigg went to potentially places like the Jaguars. Michael Trigg being more of a big Y, where you move around, where you have Brent Strange be like the tight end one. I think that Liam Cohen can cook some up with Michael Trigg. That would be dangerous for me. Um, Maybe you can look for maybe the 49ers. Yes, right now I said George Kittle's coming off the injury, so Tongues be more so the tight end one at the time being. But if you want to look for future reference when George Kittle comes back and you want to have more of a two tight end set, it's like really great receiving tight ends. And I'm not trying to downplay Tongues. I just think like he's better as a run blocker than he is as a pass catcher. Michael Trigg is a dangerous weapon to have as a tight end too with George Kittle. So again, that would be dangerous as well. I think there's some he's had some talks with them. Lastly, with the whole entire Zach Ertz situation, I think that tight end is not an immediate need for the Commanders, but it could be a need for the Commanders. If they want to look later on in this draft for it, it could go in a different direction. I'll talk about it in just a second with another player. But if they want to go for more of a receiving option straight out the gate, Michael Trigg with Jane Daniels be that would be fun to watch. That would be very, very fun to watch. Again, he is one of the players that um, I don't know if I'm willing to make the risk to go after Michael Trigg, but he is going to make some plays that are going to wow some people. That's for sure. So again, Michael Trigg, exciting tight end prospect. Don't know how he'll work on the NFL, but I'm hoping the best for him. Honestly, hoping the best for him. He's one of the players that you just love to watch. Number 5, a little bit hot, a little bit lower on than most people. Has to be Max Clare out of Ohio State. I understand, like I said, he's a very solid guy. There is just nothing really that screams to me about Max Clare being anything more than a tight end two. And I hate to say that, because I think he's a good player. I'm just very, very low on what his ceiling is. I think he's a great player that, hey, if we're looking at potentially the Patriots, so like looking for a tight end two right now, you got Hunter Henry looking for a tight end two. I think that works great for Max Clare. I think that he's, like I said, he's reliable. I don't think that he does anything in particular great, but looking for more of a reliable option that can get open. Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. I think he's a pretty good blocker. Not amazingly, but I think he's a pretty good blocker. So again, I have no problem with that. The Bucks. I mean, right now, like I said, a lot of people are trying to put the Bucks at more of an explosive tight end because obviously with Zach Robinson coming from the Atlanta Falcons, that whole situation, and him actually using Kyle Pitts, they're going to look more of an explosive tight end. But if you're looking for a tight end to pair with Kate Otten, kind of fits kind of similar role. Sure, like I said, Max Clare could fit there. Even the Broncos, and the Broncos are in an interesting spot where they're looking at potentially getting an explosive tight end if someone falls to them at pick 62. I don't know if that's going to happen, but they are looking at tight end. So if they want to look at Max Clare being like a decent option, like round 3, I have no problem with that. But I don't know. I don't feel great about his ceiling as much as some other people are trying to hype him up to be. Not trying to downplay him. I think it kind of sounds like I am. I'm not trying to. When I'm talking about a lot of big about Michael Trigg and then Max Clare, it's just boring for Max Clare. That even sounds even worse. Dadgummit. I feel like that's not even worse. The highlight plays for Michael Trigg makes it seem like he could be even better in the NFL, depending on the scheme that he goes into. Max Clare just know is going to be reliable, which is not a bad thing. It's just not exciting. And that's what I'm trying to say. Um, but I think he's a great guy. Uh, I just feel like I'm sounding like way more harsh than I am. I'm not trying to be on Max Clare. If I sound more harsh, please let me know in the comments below. I'm not trying to be. I just think that I realizing now I think I'm sounding kind of very low on him. Number 4, not wide receiver, tight end that I don't want to dignify as being like mainly a blocking tight end, but I think part of it was the scheme that he was in Stanford, and that is Sam Roush from Stanford. I think that he has potential to move on up to be more of a receiving a tight end, but I think right now set standard as being an excellent running back, an excellent run blocking tight end with potential to get even better by like say like a year 3 kind of situation where he might maybe he can move into a tight end 1 role, but I think right now it's definitely tight end 2. But I think that he's gonna guy that's definitely gonna that could definitely work out in the NFL. I don't know how high he can go, but if I'm looking at a blocking tight end, if I'm looking at like a Chris Manhertz, again, I'm talking about more Panthers guy, but Chris Manhertz had like an 8-year career because again he was a great blocking tight end for the Panthers, for the Giants, and whatnot. So again, if you're looking for a tight end that's going to last in the NFL, sure, would you like him to be a great receiving option? Absolutely. But if you're looking for a guy who just can almost be like a sixth offensive lineman out there, there you go. That's Sam Roush. So again, um, Buccaneers, if they're looking to do 2 tight end sets, but I think he's kind of athletic too. So again, that Sam Roush could even elevate as well. The Commanders is the other option I was saying. Like, could the Commanders go for more of from the same well and Stanford and go at, like I said, you had Zach Ertz, Stanford. Now you could have him. Sam Rush, not saying the same as a player, but I'm saying like, interesting situation to replace Zach Ertz with. But I think he's a great blocking tight end. He's very reliable, and you're looking for a reliable option with, maybe you go wide receiver in the first round and you pair up 2 star wide receivers with a very solid tight end, while Zach Ertz is dealing with potentially a not game, but a career altering injury. I think that'd be perfectly fine for them. And the last one is trying to find someone who can replace Chig Okonkwo. And if I'm looking for somebody to replace Chig Okonkwo, somebody who can block really well, somebody who can move around, Sam Roush is a pretty daggum good blocking tight end, so I can put him pretty much anywhere. And depending on where the Titans go with, where they need help blocking, like a sixth offensive lineman, there you go, right there with Sam Roush. So again, I think he's a great fit for the Titans. Again, I think that he's a reliable kind of guy, and obviously the blocking like shows out. I think he was way more athletic than I thought he was going to be. So again, I think there is something to tap in there with better coaching, with better scheme, but I haven't seen it yet. So I'm hoping to see it a little bit more potentially in the NFL. But for sure, great blocking tight end that's definitely going to last a decent while. This one I will say is a little more projection because I know what he can be as Oscar Delp, my tight end 3. Yeah, I think might be a little bit might be a little bit higher than other people than consistence, but Oscar Delp has so much potential to be so much more. Yes, like I said, he came in, he was hoping he could be like the Brock Bowers situation, but as I said before, with Zachariah Branch. And again, I don't want to have a long Mike Bobo rant. That's for another time. But the way that they use Oscar Delp ticks me off. And it shouldn't. As an Auburn fan, I should be happy that they're underutilizing very talented players. But as a fan of the game, it sucks having to watch a talented player like Oscar Delp be wasted away in an offense manned by Mike Bobo. Rant over. But what he is right now, he's a great utility tight end who's shown ability to be a decent blocker, not as great as Sam Roush, but also has very athletic traits, has great ball skills as well. Oscar Delp, I think if you're the Broncos and you accidentally miss out on who my tight end 2 will be, which Eli Stowers, this could be an option for you at pick 62. Again, would it be a little bit higher? Sure. But I mean, hey, you're not going to be able to get him in the third round, I don't think. Um, Speaking of Broncos, Patriots. Patriots, like I just said, if you have Hunter Henry looking for a tight end 2 who might eventually be their eventual replacement, there you go. In the second round, you get your tight end 2. He can, continue to develop, like I said, behind a great tight end, Hunter Henry. But Hunter Henry's like, 31 years old? So again, he's got to get a little bit older and be able to eventually replace him. So again, that would be a great role for Oscar Delp, be able to be a moving chess piece. Last one, I don't know if what the Vikings will do with the situation they're in right now, but they have to find a replacement for T.J. Hockenson. And there is potential for Sadiq, and we'll talk about him in a second. I don't think that he is an option for them, but there is potentially, if the Vikings guy isn't there, they could go Sadiq maybe. I don't think so. Oscar Delp would be my bet because again, it'll be cheaper option. You get a more impactful guy in round one, and you can get a guy who is for sure, going to be a great just compliment. Because again, I think the Vikings are going to go with another wide receiver two to replace Jordan Addison, who's right now okay. But you also have Justin Jefferson. You don't have to be something special if you have Justin Jefferson. But if you are a reliable tight end like what Oscar Delp is, who can continue to develop, because I think he has the potential in a Kevin O'Connell offense, I honestly love Oscar Delp going to the Vikings. If somehow, some way, the Vikings get Oscar Delp and Skylar Bell, holy crap! I would just love the Vikings draft if that was the case. I don't even care who you get in the first round. If you get Dylan Thieneman, that's even better. But like that could be an amazing draft for the Vikings right here, right now. Now going to tight end two, and I think there is a sizable gap between Keenan Sadiq, who's number one, and Eli Stowers, number two. Though I think part of it is because I think Kenyon Sadiq's blocking is whole lot better than Stowers, which makes sense. Stowers is a converted quarterback to tight end, but you can see when you're watching Stowers, you can see the fact, hey, he knows how to get open. Again, quarterback mind, knows, like I said, the little pockets, especially in zones. He's got great hands, great speed. You saw, I mean, like if you care about the combine, like I said, obviously, like I said, he jumped through the gym, that kind of stuff. That kind of athletic traits shows out on the field. Just watch him. The blocking has to get better. It has to. It's like I said, is it as bad as what I would say with Michael Trigg? No, but it's got to get better, Eli. And I think that he can. I think especially in a better, like I said, when he's like in the league, he's going to get better. But it's definitely a reason why I have him a little bit lower on Eli Stowers, even though I love him to death. I think he's an amazing receiving option, and I think that if the Broncos get him, Jaguars get him, Titans get him, he'd be perfect for them. But only as a receiver, because right now that blocking has to get better. So I'm not going to do in depth Eli Stowers, because again, most just has to do with his receiving ability, knowing how to get open, having great hands, being athletic. Kenny Sadiq, number one. I feel very safe with Kenny Sadiq. I don't feel great about him going top 10. I don't even feel great about him really going top 15. Well, no, I'll be fine. Him if he goes to the Buccaneers, which could happen. It would suck as a Panthers fan because I had to go against him all the time, and he would fit basically with the Kyle Pitts role for Zach Robinson's offense. Hopefully, it doesn't happen. Hopefully, it doesn't happen. But I am just hoping and praying that Kansas City goes to a team that's going to utilize him the best. Does he have blocking ability at the wazoo? No, but for his size, he's got great blocking. And I think that sometimes that gets hyped up a little bit more than it should. He's a great blocker, but is he an amazing blocker? No, but is he, like I said, he's great for his size. That's me. What I say. You want to go into space? He's a great blocker. You look at the Penn State tape; he's a great blocker. So he got some great film out there, being a great blocker. That I think could get him even better. But for right now, I think he is an exceptional talent. I think he's the kind of guy that you want to have your team because he's explosive. But tight end's one of those kind of wonky kind of uh positions that is might take him a little bit longer to develop into the league, which is going to cause people to be wary. Do I want to take him with the top 15 pick? Which is the reason why I have him as a low pick. Is again, I think he's definitely going to go first round. Should go in the middle somewhere. Starting could potentially with the Bucks. Browns are another option. Wouldn't love to go to the Browns because again, Browns pairing him with Harold Fan Jr. I think they basically fit the same exact role. But if he wants to go with the two tie set with athletic traits of the wazoo, go on right ahead. Again, that's what you want to base your offense on. That can definitely work. So Todd Monken, hey, if that's what you want to do, 24, he's still there. Absolutely. Don't think he will be. Like I said, I don't even think he fits. He even makes the Chiefs. But if there's somehow, some way, the Chiefs are let's just say, okay, the trade that I think Peter Schrager said that basically swap first round picks, and and the Chiefs are at pick 20. If they want to cheat up a couple of picks to make sure they can, like, maybe they swap with like the Lions or whatever, and they give a third round pick to get Ken Sadiq to be the eventual replacement for Travis Kelsey, that's a dangerous option right there. Again, try not to think about it, but again, you put Kenyon Sadiq in the Chiefs offense, he could be basically what you have right now for Travis Kelsey. Obviously, like I said, Travis Kelsey is a Hall of Famer, so that's a high praise. But if you want an athletic tight end who can still kind of block, who can know how to get open, who's got great speed, there you go. It's Kenyon Sadiq. So again, I like I said, I would hate for him to go to the Chiefs, but it's the best thing for him. So again, these are the tight ends. Again, I kind of want to show like there's still like I think there's a lot of tight ends who can definitely work on the NFL. I might not be as high as I am on some other people, but I just think that they're decent tight ends. So again, this is a long video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I will see you in the next one. Bye.